Shavua Tov. I'm just going to put mute, but please feel free to unmute if you want to participate in any way. We're going to be talking about the laws of Teshuvah and actually conclude those laws tonight. And with that, we're actually finishing the first book of Rambam, which is the book of knowledge. So we've got a siyum coming this evening. It's 1/14 of Rambam down so far, 14 books in the 3-year program. So it's quite remarkable. Lost count of how many weeks it's been. It's been a few months since we've been going. I think it was the 17th of Tammuz we began, the 18th of Tammuz that we began the new cycle. So here's the first siyum of the first of the 14 books. And so you can get your l'chaim ready so that we can celebrate at the end of this. Well, I can't, to be honest, because I follow the cycle of doing 3 chapters of Rambam a week. So I'm a little bit ahead of this. And as I was saying to the children before, at the end of Shabbos when I was preparing this shir, and you can't really prepare a shir or Shabbos for Motzei Shabbos. So I said to my kids, I actually have the custom of doing 3 chapters a week. Every day, 3 chapters a day, every week. And on Shabbos, I have the additional custom of also learning the appropriate 1 chapter. That's my minhag for Shabbos, because otherwise, it becomes a bit of a rush to go over the Rambam, at the very last minute. So here we go. In yesterday's shiur, it talked about the amazing rewards for the righteous, Olam Haba, and where we end up when we do mitzvahs and the amazing benefits that come from mitzvahs. So to conclude the laws of Teshuvah, Rambam actually goes and explains to us that that's all good, but that's not why. We don't do mitzvahs in order to reap a reward. And he actually explains that there are 2 ways of serving Hashem. The one would be the basic level of ulterior motives. You want a reward or you're scared of punishment. And the other is a higher level, which is to do it for the purity of the relationship with Hashem. And he's going to define these as serving God with fear or love, respectively. So obviously the serving Hashem be'ahava, with love, is a higher level, one we have to strive for, but one which, as you will see, is maybe not within the reach of each of us to achieve that easily. And here is my Rambam text. So this is Teshuvah, chapter 10. And Rambam tells us that a person should not say, I will fulfill the mitzvahs of the Torah, occupy myself in its wisdom in order to receive all the blessings which are contained within it, or in order to merit the life of the world to come. Because we've defined that there are 2 kinds of rewards connected with mitzvahs. The one is the benefit in this world, and the other one is a benefit in the world to come. The ultimate benefit is that in the world to come. At the same time, we do also get perks. And I think we discussed this, many weeks, months ago, that the ultimate reward is not in this world. There is no real reward for doing mitzvahs in this world. The real reward is in the world to come. What we have here is the perks. If you work in the company, you don't work for the parking place or the free lunch tickets, or the water machine, or the fancy Nespresso maker. You work because you want to get a salary at the end of the month. But then there are perks. Google, for example, is famous for providing amazing perks for its employees. If you work in the workspace there in San Francisco, then there's gyms. Nobody joins Google because they want to have free gym membership. People join because they want to be part of a great company and they want to get a salary. The salary is Olam Haba. The perks is the benefits that we have in this world. And Rambam clearly refers to the ultimate reward as Chayei HaOlam Haba. Similarly, a man says, I will separate myself from all the sins which Torah warned against, so that I will be saved from all the curses contained in the Torah, or so that my soul will not be cut off from the life in the world to come. End of quotation marks. That's all starts with a person shall not say, and that's what a person shall not say from here to here. To here. That's what a person should not say. I'll fulfill the mitzvahs for reward, or I'm not going to sin because I'm scared of punishment. It's not fitting to serve God in this manner. A person whose service is motivated by these factors is considered one who serves out of fear. So that's not the correct way. and that is Oved Me'yirah, one who serves Hashem out of fear. That's not the correct manner. He's not on the level of the prophets or of the wise. And the ones who serve God in this manner are common people, women and minors, and those common people are referred to as Amei Haaretz. Amei Haaretz, they're good people, they're God-fearing people, they're decent people, they are hard-working people who contribute a lot to society. Therefore, they're called Amei Haaretz, and that they're people of the land. But they are not the people who actually serve God in the ideal way. But because of their simplicity, lack of sophistication, lack of understanding, that's the most that they can be. And by the time we finish this, we're going to think of all of ourselves as possibly Amei Haaretz. Well, I speak to myself. They're trained to serve God out of fear, till their knowledge increases, and they serve out of love. So you can start with fear, you can get to serving God out of love. Some people are going to get there, other people are going to not be able to, because their intellectual capacity or emotional capacity isn't really there and not able to do this. Continues Rambam in chapter 2. One who serves God out of love and occupies himself in the Torah and the mitzvahs and walks in the paths of wisdom for no ulterior motive, not because of fear that evil will occur, nor in order to acquire benefit. Rather, he does what is true because this is true, and ultimately good will come because of it. So that is serving Hashem out of love, purely altruistically for the right reasons, not because he wants a reward, and not because he is afraid of what the consequences might be. He's doing it because it's true. Okay, this is divine, it's correct, it's the right path, and yeah, good will come out of it, but that's not why I'm doing it. This is a very high level, which is not merited by every wise man. It's the level of our patriarch Abraham. God refers to Abraham as Avraham Ohavi, and he doesn't say this here, Ohavo. God refers to Hashem as Avraham Ohavi, Avraham who loved me, for his service was one only motivated by love. And that's the mitzvah, which we're very familiar with in the Shema, of V'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha. God commanded us to seek this rung of service, as Kaved Moses in Deuteronomy, love God your Lord. So that's the mitzvah. V'ahavta Hashem Elokecha means love Hashem. Now, it's difficult to mandate a feeling. How can you mandate, how can you make it obligatory to love? How can you make it obligatory to fear? How can you make it a mitzvah that you have to love? And we'll see, Rambam explains to us at the very end of this chapter how we get to that level of love. But when a man will love God in the proper manner, he will immediately perform all of the mitzvot motivated by love. So you love Hashem, and if your relationship with Hashem is one motivated by love and not by fear, and fear, as we said, defined by either seeking benefit or afraid of punishment, but rather because you love Hashem, you do what's right, as one would in a marriage, where you're not afraid of the mapala your wife will give you, but you are concerned with doing that which you know she likes because you love her and you want to please her. That's a different level. And in fact, in the next chapter, because Rambam refers to loving God in the proper manner. So what's the proper manner? So he's going to define that in our next paragraph, in paragraph 3, and he's going to use the metaphor of human love, of love from one person to the other. And we're quite familiar with that metaphor of a love affair between a man and a woman, which King Solomon used in Shir Hashirim, Song of Songs. Talks about deep levels of a relationship between humans and Hashem, yet it's worded in what people who don't really understand it almost sounds like a crude love song, but it's a description of the longing of the Jewish people to Hashem, and Hashem returning that love for the Jewish people. The most famous verse in that entire Shir Hashirim, particularly in the month of Elul, is Ani L'Dodi V'Dodi Li, because the acronym of that is Ani L'Dodi, Aleph Lamed V'Dodi Li, Vav Lamed, that spells Elul. This is a month when that love is most evident during this current month. So what's the proper degree of love? That a person should love God with a very great and exceedingly love until his soul is bound up in the love of God. Thus, he will always be obsessed with this love as if he is love sick. It actually uses the words choli ahava, love sick, literally in Hebrew. Choli ahava, choli is illness, chole, and this person is chole ahava, is love sick. So a person who is love sick is totally obsessed with the love of a woman. Okay, we're talking about not just normal love, but a love which is obsessive as it is when a person is love sick, cannot stop thinking obsessively about this person. Even when he sits down, when he gets up, when he eats or drinks, even greater love, the love for God should be implanted in the hearts of those who love him and are obsessed with him at all times, as we commanded. Love God with all your heart and all your souls. And that concept is actually found in Shir HaShirim, in the song of King Solomon, where he talks about Kicholat Ahava Ani, and that's the metaphor of Song of Songs, when King Solomon says, I'm lovesick. In fact, as I mentioned earlier, the entire Song of Songs is a parable describing this love. So when one starts thinking about, lovebirds, a young couple, maybe an older couple who's been married for 30, 40, 50 years, and they're absolutely passionate about each other, and then I become lovesick to the extent that that is the total occupation of the man for the woman for the man, whichever way it goes, where they cannot stop thinking about each other, and every thought is about her. This should be the ultimate love for Hashem, which Rambam calls, as you can see, the proper degree of love there at the top line. And that is why King Solomon uses that parable of a young couple madly in love to describe how Hashem and his beloved run around in the vineyards, hiding from one another, appearing to one another, etc., because this is the ultimate relationship that we have to develop with Hashem. Now, we're not there. We're not there. Is that good enough? So let's just look at how Rambam describes. The sages of the previous generations declared, should one say, I will study Torah in order that I become wealthy, in order that I be called a rabbi, in order that I receive reward in the world to come. And if you think about it, it's kind of going up in the different kind of levels. And I want to be a rich man, so I'm going to study Torah, and God said He would bless me, or maybe I'd get a good job as a rabbi in some very, very wealthy community who's going to pay me very well. And if any of you know of that community, just let me know. Then I'm very loyal to my own shul. See, get some people from Oxford here online. In order to be called a rabbi, that's already a next level of kind of still selfish, not totally altruistic, but it's at least higher than that. I want to have the covet that comes with Torah knowledge, a relationship with Hashem, or a reward in the world to come, even more noble. The Torah teaches if you are careful to observe my commandments, to love God, implying that all that you should do is only to be done out of love. Sages also said, desire His commandments greatly, despite His commandments, desire His commandments and not the reward which comes from His commandments. That is from Tehillim, and we also have, in a similar manner, the great sages would command the more understanding and prudent among the students in private. Do not be like servants who serve their master for the sake of receiving a reward. Rather, since he is the master, it is fitting to serve him out of love. So this is actually from Pirkei Avot. Al tiyu kavadim shomshim et harav amanat lekabel schar. Do not be like those who serve their master for the sake of receiving a reward. Rather, be like one who does it because it's the correct thing. So it would seem that not serving God out of pure love is kind of really a second best and very disappointing. Should we even be doing it? And a bit of a hint to the fact that this is not for everybody is that Rambam says the great sages will command the more understanding and brilliant among the students in private. So it's kind of understood by Rambam that this is not something that everyone can achieve, that serving Hashem out of love is for special people. And Pirkei Avot talks about rabbis calling in some students at some point and saying to them in private, this is how you should be serving God. What you're doing at this point is not the purity of the service, because you're still doing it for ulterior motives. Where does that leave all of us here? Quite kind of disappointing to hear that we only second best. And Rambam makes it clear. Anyone who occupies himself with the Torah in order to receive reward to protect himself from retribution, is considered as one who is not occupied for God's sake. It's not lishma. In contrast, anybody who occupies himself with it, not out of fear, but not to receive a reward, but rather for his love of God and for the entire earth who commanded it, is occupied himself for God's sake. So these are the terms shelo lishma, not for the pure sake of Torah or God's sake, and lishma, which is to actually occupy yourself for the sake of Hashem. And clearly Rambam is saying that shelo lishma is kind of a poor second best to lishma. Here comes the crux. Nevertheless, as sages declared, a person should only occupy himself with the Torah, even when it is not for God's sake. For out of service which is not intended for God's sake will come the service that is intended for God's sake. And this is a famous statement of the sages. Olam yasok adam b'Torah afilu shelo lishma, shemitoch shelo lishma ba lishma. Person should engage in Torah even for ulterior motives, even for the wrong reason, even for hope of a reward or fear of punishment. And through that, he will reach eventually level of lishma. So you can't just get to lishma. You can't get to the purity of the service of Hashem immediately and directly. That's not possible. It can only happen after you have occupied yourself, and it's a stepping stone. Therefore, one teaches children and women, and most of the common people, one should teach them to serve out of fear in order to receive a reward. As their knowledge grows and their wisdom increases, this secret should be revealed to them slowly, bit by bit. They should come accustomed to this concept gradually, to the grasp it and know it, and begin serving Hashem out of love. So that's very important, because we kind of may have been very disheartened finding out that we're all serving Hashem for the wrong reasons, even if it's for the reward of Olam Haba, even if it's for the fear of punishment in this world. It's not purely because we want a relationship with Hashem. And so we're told that's okay. Start there, and eventually, with the passage of time, you may hope to achieve the higher level. But the question is this: how do we reach that higher level? And how do we actually get to love Hashem? And how can it even be a mitzvah? And that was actually brought up at the very beginning of the book of knowledge, in the laws of foundations of the Torah, in the first couple of chapters. The Rambam makes that point very clear to conclude that book of knowledge in the very last halakha. And he tells us, how are you going to reach that level of love for Hashem? It is possible, and there's a simple recipe. And the recipe and the solution is, you cannot love that which you do not know. And knowledge brings about love. And we know that, for example, for marriages, from other relationships, in a spousal relationship, husband and wife, at the beginning, we barely know each other. And the more we get to know each other, the more that love grows. And it's as if, obviously, when we discover good things, the more we get to know one another, we discover things that we wish we hadn't. That's a different story. But if we're discovering positive, and the more we intimately get to know the other, the more the love grows. And the solution to love of Hashem is precisely that, says Rambam. You need to work on understanding Hashem, knowing Hashem, and the more you understand Hashem, the more you're going to be able to develop that love. And that's a final halakha. It is well known, in a clear matter, that the love of God will not become attached within a person's heart until it becomes obsessed with it at all times, as is fitting, leaving all things in the world except for this. This was implied by the command, love God your Lord with all your heart and all your soul. So now we get to not just V'ahavta Hashem Elokecha, but also B'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha. The additional words of the Shema imply that love has to be not just external, but something which is totally consuming and obsessive. One can only love God as an outgrowth of the knowledge with which he knows him. The nature of one's love depends on the nature of one's knowledge. A small amount of knowledge arouses a lesser love. A great amount of knowledge arouses a greater love. Therefore, it is necessary for a person to seclude himself in order to understand and conceive wisdom and concepts which make his Creator known to him, according to the potential which man possesses to understand and comprehend, as we explained in Luchot Yisodei HaTorah. So clearly, there's a limit to how much we can understand, but to the extent that man is able to understand God, he is obliged to do so. And that means that there is the obligation of not just learning what we call the revealed parts of Torah, and learning halacha and learning Gemara and learning things which are necessarily stimulating for the brain, but also stuff which is stimulating for our neshama. And that's the study of what's called Sifrei Musar. That's a wide term for all books that deal with understanding how Hashem functions better, from Derech Hashem to Chassidut to books of Kabbalah, as they brought down, genuine Kabbalah, mostly as elucidated in books of Chassidut, and that's an obligation. And with that, Rambam says, just before I close the screen, that this concludes the book of of Madda, of knowledge, which began with the laws of Yesodei Torah, and he kind of ties it up together. Blessed be God who grants assistance. This concludes the first book, the book of knowledge, with the help of the Almighty. The amount of chapters of this book are 46, of which there was 10 chapters in Yesodei Torah, 7 in Deot, the laws of values, 7 in the laws of Talmud Torah, which I recall starting with you and ending with you, the laws of idolatry, 12 chapters, and finally we've now concluded 10 chapters of the laws of Teshuvah. So that is actually 46 days we've been studying together, and my colleagues and I with you. And for that, I want to say Mazel Tov, well done. And it's been wonderful to spend these Motzei Shabbos with you. And just looking to be able to see you all once again. There we go. So that's all of us here on one screen. And wish you a wonderful week. Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. Find you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Yes,
Shavuot Tov, Shavuot
Thank you to
Tov.
all of you.
Terry, you haven't missed a day. Hey? Terry, you
Yeah,
haven't missed a day, hey?
Everyone.
nah,
No, good, yeah. Well, whenever I come, I see you, yeah. Wonderful.
well,
Good.
you give a good drasha.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.